We feel like we're matter trying to change matter. We feel like we're vibrating at the same speed as everything else, and so we have to get what we want, means we have to go and get it. And so then people start mixing spiritual principles with that phenomenon, right? So then that's not what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about if you're able to understand that when you're living by the hormones of stress, that your senses are heightened and that you're a materialist trying to define reality. If you can't see it, feel it, taste it, smell it, it doesn't exist, and you're getting ready for something bad to happen, and be prepared and protect yourself, and that's how most people live, then everybody's doing that. Everybody's matter trying to change matter, and sooner or later we're going to bump into each other and there's going to be sparks, right? So then, is it possible then that instead of being defined as a body, living in an environment in a particular time, that if you were to close your eyes and disconnect from the external environment, to sit your body down and to transcend time and to become nobody, you have the biological machinery to do this, to become no one. You're not a face, you're not a man, you're not a documentary filmmaker, you're not your past, you're not your future, you're not a husband, you're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're not your habits, you're not the predictable future or the familiar past. You're pure consciousness. Now, if you are going to heal your body by thought alone, if you are going to create some event in your external environment by thought alone, and if you are going to transcend time by thought alone, then you have to become thought alone. And so when people start to really realize that they can change the neurocircuitry in their brain by thought alone, send new emotional signals that begin to select and upregulate new genes and downregulate other genes, and it may take knocking on that door for extended periods of time till finally the gene is programmed. Because it took them 10 years to program the gene for the disease, it may take them a few years to reprogram the gene. Now we're talking about pragmatist. We're talking about someone who's applying some principles. And so then when that occurs, and the energy that was sitting in these hormonal centers of survival, anger and fear and guilt and shame, the energy kind of moves up a little bit. We've measured this. Heart starts to open, gets more coherent. The field around the body begins to grow. We've measured that. The person feels more like energy, less like matter. They feel like more like wave, less like particle. They're not afraid of the unknown.
Let's go ahead and answer.
Not afraid of the unknown. They're craving and they're trusting in the unknown. And that kind of expanded energy is now they're no longer enslaved emotionally to the past. They're no longer an identity that's connected to a disease. They're no longer a body who's addicted to an emotion. They're no longer trying to forecast the future based on the past. They're no longer a man, they're no longer a woman, they're no longer a nurse, they're no longer black, they're no longer white, they're no longer anything. They are completely poised in the present moment. And that present moment produces a liberation of energy because the body is no longer held to the chains of the past. And that liberation of energy then begins to produce a biological transformation in the brain and the body. We've seen it. The brain gets highly coherent, gets super organized. The person feels whole. We've measured that. Their heart moves into a state of joy and love and gratitude. We measured that. The field around their bodies enhanced. We measure that. And the person could no longer cares about the future or the past. They're happy in the present moment. They no longer want anything because they're whole. And if you're whole, it's impossible to want. And that's the moment it happens. And so kind of this paradox that begins to occur. So why am I explaining it like this? Because I want to answer the ultimate question of what you're asking, is that there's an intelligence that's giving us life. It's keeping my heart beating and digesting my food and organizing trillions of functions per second in every cell of my body. I'm not doing that. I'm having a conversation with you as a free-willed, subjective consciousness, but there's an intelligence within me that's always endorsing who I'm being. And that intelligence is a giver of life. So to demystify it then, and this is where I part from the spiritual community, because when your will matches its will, when your mind matches its mind, when your love for life matches its love for life, it begins to work in ways that are mysterious. Now, why is that important? Because the mysterious is the unknown, and the unknown is unexpected, and the unexpected should bring a surprise, and that surprise should be outside of my current beliefs. If it's happening, how could I expect the supernatural to happen if I'm expecting it to happen? It's impossible. But if I'm in the unknown and I'm open to possibility, then I should be able to create an unknown experience that I can't predict the emotion or the future event of how it's going to occur or when it's going to occur. It's not my job. And the side effect of that is this mysterious surprise that changes my biology from the new experience and then causes me to change my beliefs. And I've had enough of my own mystical moments. In the midst of that mystical experience, I have said in the midst of it, I have this all wrong. I have said it right in the midst of the experience. I am doing this so wrong because I was so programmed into this box of belief. But the only way the unexpected could happen is giving up expectation, which means you have to surrender that belief. How it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, I can't predict that. So then that same intelligence that's giving me life according to the quantum model of reality is the same intelligence that's creating supernovas and causing flowers to bloom. It's within us and all around us. It's a very wave of quantum physics. I can't control that. I can't expect how the particle is going to appear or when it's going to appear, but it's not my job. My job is to move into different states of being and be open to the mystery of how it's going to happen. So if I said to you today, Ben, that I had all the answers to everything, I would certainly be limiting this conversation. But I am open to the mystery of life. And the mystery of life then means that if we're asking certain questions and we even speculate that it's possible, then someone has to step out of their present beliefs to see if it is. And so I'm not interested in the natural. I'm not interested in the normal. I'm interested in the supernatural, the supernormal. And I believe, from my present state of ignorance, of course, if we're going to use the word belief, that you don't have to be a Buddhist monk. You don't have to be a nun with 40 years of devotion. You don't have to be a religious scholar. You don't have to be a researcher. You don't have to have a PhD to do this. That common people around the world can do the uncommon. And if they're given the right understanding and the environment is set up where they can begin the application of that. And I have looked at over 1,000 brain scans of people in meditation. And I can tell you that you and I are at our absolute best when we get beyond our analytical mind. When we get beyond ourselves. That's the moment that the brain gets so organized and so coherent. Front of the brain's talking to the back of the brain, the right side of the brain's talking to the left side of the brain. There's this synchronization, this psychic union going on.
Like a flow.
And the person has tears of joy rolling down their face. That gestalt moment, that transcendent event for the person is completely subjective. But my interest is measuring that subjective experience.
Sure.
And we're capturing amplitudes of energy in people's brains that are 26,000 to 40,000 times normal during that experience. Now, they can't make their brain do that. It's happening to them. And the inner event that's happening to them is more real than any past event. And that's the moment I know their belief is changing.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And watch the videos on the screen right now for more inspiration videos from Dr. Dispenza.